Today, I have a storytelling couple with me. Shobha writes the stories, and Mr. Vish, he's the one who is taken to education as well as music and other roles. Vish is the CEO of Karadi Tales. Shobha is the publishing director. Thank you guys for joining me to sit down with me to have a chat. Uh, I'd love to hear the backstory as always. Why did you all get into kids publishing? 96, right? I'd love to hear the backstory quickly. What is the lead up to Karadi Tales?
Thank you, Sriram, for inviting us to this podcast, and really, really happy to be here. We've told this a million times, but we'll tell it again. We were in the US when our son was born, and Vish was, of course, in proper corporate job, and I just finished taking a master's in special education from Eastern Michigan University, and when my son was born, I would take him to the public libraries there. I mean, when he was about one and a half, and at that time, I don't know if you've ever been to the public libraries in the US. It's just absolutely magnificent. And I would bring home books for him, and I discovered Disney's audiobooks. We've all watched the Disney movies, right? What Disney did at the time was sort of pared down the entire movie into a little book with a cassette, where if it was Little Mermaid, the songs would be there, and the whole story was narrowed down to about 20 minutes or 22 minutes for children to listen to. And I'd bring these audiobooks home, and those were books with cassettes. So you would play the cassette, and the child would have the book to listen and read along. Of course, my son was far too young at the time to start reading, but Disney had a very interesting thing. At the end of every page, there would be a cue, a little sound, where even if the child didn't know how to read, he would only have to listen to the sound and then know it's time to turn the page. I thought this was brilliant, because when you turn the page, the audio continues, of course, and then the child is looking at the pictures and looking at the text and listening to the story at the same time. This was, I thought, and it kept rooted. My son would put cassette after cassette and listen to so many stories, and many stories he would listen to again and again. When we returned to India, and Kaushik was about 5 years old at the time, I was looking for similar audiobooks for him. By then my daughter had arrived. For her and even for him, first of all, there were no audiobooks for children at all. And even the stories that were available were largely, Cinderella and Snow White and Little Mermaid or whatever, stories that were borrowed from the West. And then he was still with the job, with the corporate.
Sorry to cut you here. What is the timeline like? When was?
So we returned in 1993. Or 93, is it?
Yes.
1993. And Kaushik was not even 5 then.
He was just about 5.
Yeah, just about 5.
Yeah.
And we were in Pune at the time, I remember. And we just thought to ourselves, why don't we just create an audiobook that the way we want it? And we first thought that the safest bet was to create stories that everybody already knew, that the popular folk tales or stories from the Panchatantra and the Jataka. And so I did my research to see which stories would suit an audio format, that you could dramatize a little bit and add a soundscape to it. And in my research, one of the strangest things I found was that there were absolutely no stories, folk tales that I encountered that featured a bear in it. There were stories of crows and jackals and monkeys and snakes and lions, but none with bears. And it's not like bear is not integral to our environment, no? So then I thought, well, if I don't find a story with a bear, then I have to bring the bear as a part of every story. And that's how the bear came to be a feature or an integral part of all of the stories that we published. Now, why the name Karadi, you would ask? Of course, Karadi is a bear in Kannada, it is a bear in Malayalam, it is a bear in Tamil. I'm not sure what it is in Telugu. And I thought I definitely didn't want to name him Baloo the bear or some Teddy or I don't know. And I thought, nice for a South Indian word other than idli and dosa and sambar to travel up north, right? And therefore I called him Karadi. And that's how Karadi Tales were born, because or the name came to stick because all the stories were narrated by Karadi, or Karadi was the Sutradhar. Now we had to find a voice for Karadi, and I think I'll let him take over from here as to how Nasiruddin Shah happened to be the first person who gave voice to Karadi.
I'll add one question there. Very interesting. I'm glad you brought me all the way up there. You answered like 4 questions there. What was India like in 93? What was running in your mind? What could, because the context also I think will be interesting if you can add along with Nasiruddin Shah.
When we were in the US and when we chose to return to India at a certain point in time, we had an idea of my son growing up in an Indic environment.
Really?
It was only 6-7 years that we were gone. But by the time we came back, a lot had actually changed. Where if you walked into a bookstore, you really did not find anything Indic in that bookstore.
Yeah.
And so, the Chandamama was there at a certain point in time, Amar Chitrakatha was there. They were all past, and there wasn't another entity that had actually come up. And the aspiration to be very Western had taken very strong roots. Because somewhere or the other, our idea of success was tied to the West. We all, there's so much talk about how, we have been somehow or the other brought up with a defeatist philosophy of our own heritage. More misinformed than we are informed about it. Actually inspired us to, think about how are our children going to grow up in the absence of, their own culture. And why did we come back to India? Because we came back to India because we wanted my child growing up in an Indic cultural environment. In addition to being global in outlook, at the same time, you want to be rooted, in terms of your own identity, your own heritage. So I think that the inspiration at that particular point in time, and these are not things that you do with a lot of thought, okay? Somewhere you go into a bookstore, you're frustrated. And then you say, well, what can we do about it? Rather than just let that frustration fester, you just turn it into some kind of an action. And that is how it happened. And both my brothers, who are also musicians, and both of them are from IITs, IIMs and everything, but they had, for some reason or the other, just gone wild and decided to drop anything corporate and took to music full time. They also returned from the US. So around that time, so we had this, and then when the audiobook audiobook idea came up, there was also this amazing element of Disney movies where the music production, the soundscape would be extraordinarily rich. It is Hans Zimmer who would be creating the music with, 200-piece orchestra and a 300-piece orchestra. So the kind of production values that they were actually giving to everything that they produced. So that was truly inspiring. And we said, what can we do? We can't obviously do it at that scale. Disney made a movie and then they took that soundtrack and put it as part of this little cassette. We need to go the other direction and, actually build up. So we took that very extraordinarily seriously. So it was not ding-dong, ting-tong music at all. It was very, very well thought through. We said that the music should be Indian. The child should be exposed to ragas. So there's all this thing that we thought about. Specifically from the point of view of the narration, we said that you want a voice that has what we had termed as a neutral Indian accent, even if it's in English. The whole idea is that the storytelling is in English, but all the aesthetics can be completely Indian, and including the way you pronounce, so you're not trying to, emulate anything else. And we also wanted somebody who could actually act with the voice without melodramatizing, which is a far, far more difficult skill than you can imagine. Because when we started, listening, we realized that we had very few choices. And somewhere or the other, I think that it was just sheer luck, our blessing, that somehow we managed to catch Nasir at the end of a shoot in a hotel. And we were tracking him because we didn't know anybody in the industry. And we were novices ourselves with nothing to speak for ourselves in terms of what we had produced. To go to somebody like Nasir and say, we're going to make this, will you be a part of what we are doing? Because we were also not offering a whole lot of money. So it just so happened, whether Nasir loved our faces or loved our earnestness or whatever it is, he said, yes, this is a great idea, let's do it. And so that really, came to the idea of, so the first Karadi, the first Sutradar was Nasir. And I think that today, if you listen to that story recorded in 1996, it will sound absolutely fresh. The first sentence will just be uplifting in terms of, how he just tells the story. And that's where the subtlety, the nuance, the kind of talent that, certain people bring to this kind of an art, we were beneficiaries of that.
What was that first story? I'm curious to know.
The Blue Jackal was our first story. It is from the Panchatantra.
We're going to be 30 years next year. Karadi Tales is going to be 30 years. And one would think that given the phenomenal success of the brand at that time, that it was something that captured everybody's imagination. And everyone had heard the Blue Jackal and the Foolish Lion, and wherever we went, they would relate to us as our names were saved on phones as Shubha Karadi, Vishwanath Karadi, and the reason why there is not another publisher, maybe I'm preempting answering the question that you have in store for me, has not happened, is because there was so much of this core competence or talent which was in-house, So I wrote almost all of the initial stories of the audiobooks. The music was all created by the three brothers, And we had so many people who were also, like his mother has sung in one of our stories. Then the nieces and the nephews and the children have all given voices. Nasir came with his own cast of actors to give different character voices. If I was to consider making an audiobook today with none of the core competencies that were in-house, and I had to outsource every one of them, right from the writing, right from the music, to the extent we did the music, like he speaks, the illustration of the books, the voices, the studios. Of course, we recorded analog then. That's a whole different story. We had these tapes, so you can't do copy paste. There's no Control Z. We had to get it. So we had to rehearse the story before we entered into the studio. And everybody had to, it was like a radio play of those days that everyone had to speak their lines whenever they appeared. It's not like aaj aap karo, phir kal character actor ko bulayenge and phir dono ko copy paste karenge, edit karenge. No such thing, It was like, when Lata Mangeshkar talks about, you had to sing it in that one take. There were no, what do you call that now? That Shruti adjuster? Auto-tune. There's no auto-tune. There's no nothing. Yeah. So the people who did what they did were really, really good. It was their talent. But what I was coming to say is, if today in 2025, I had to outsource everything, the price of my product would be, it is impossible. It's unviable. I don't know if anybody would even buy it.
So interesting. There's so many business elements I want to tie in. I think I think I'm sure you'll have thought of this, but the brand personality, if I have to put it that way, it seems to me that you've drawn into a very Indian ethos.
Correct.
And is that, do you think that was all consciously done? How did you go about branding it? I mean, I know you told me the name, but how should you speak? You know, brand is a personality, right? And I'm curious to know what was your initial discussions about that? What would it turn out to be? What was the vision? Where would it go?
Very
What did you
interesting.
think it would fit into?
You didn't think so much.
Really, seriously, we never thought about all of
Never
this.
thought so much. Yes, the Indian ethos was fundamental to the whole thing. I mean, that's the reason why we were doing what we were doing. But beyond that, you didn't get into these nitty-gritties, because what happens that when you have a high level of artistry coming and thought coming into any process, many of these things actually get covered automatically.
Just
You may not have thought about, for example, when you design Karadi the bear, how does he look, what does he wear, and all of those things. Obviously, you do have a conversation in terms of how you want Karadi the bear to look.
right.
But then at that time, you're not really thinking about what kind of impact you're going to have on society. And none of these big visions you have. I mean, you just say that, I think this is worth doing, so we are doing it. And so it's almost...
In fact, I must share this two anecdotes with you. One is that we didn't come from a background of publishing. We were educators, they were musicians. He worked in an MNC. So we didn't come from any kind of one business background or a publishing background. Okay, so when the product was ready, all the elements of the product was ready, and we were asking ourselves what should be the first print run. Okay, we said, I mean, look at how big the country is and look at how many children there are. I mean, let's go conservative and do how many copies?
13,000.
18,000 copies, okay? If anybody heard the story today, nobody does 18,000 copies, okay? Unless
For a children's book, okay.
Of a children's book.
What's a typical size?
In 2025,
No, I'll tell you, I'll add to that anecdote. So we went to the biggest distributors at that time. We had already the warehouse the copies were coming.
Yeah.
Not a warehouse, in some place where we...
one room in one.
So we went to the distributor and said, we showed the product. And the person, a veteran of the industry, looked at it and was really happy with the production. Oh my God, Nasiruddin Shah, this is such an interesting format. I think we can do really, really well with this. It can be as high as 3,000 copies.
So imagine what the standard was then, if in his opinion 3,000 was something that, and our hearts are, I mean, in palpitation mode. Okay, here we've got 18,000 copies sitting in the warehouse, and this man says he can do 3,000 countrywide in a year. Okay,
That's the whole country.
whole country, and in 1 year. It's not like एक महीने में हम 3,000 बेचेंगे. But the product spoke for itself. I think we were
8 months we were into it.
reprint.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so of 18,000 copies. But today, again, with so many other factors, of course, weighing in on what print runs should be, children's publishing houses, independent children's publishing houses, will not go. I mean,
Much
a
beyond 3,000.
bestseller would be if you did 3,000 in a year.
Interesting. Do you think it's because it's mostly in English? Do you think if you did this in Telugu or a Bengali, which is slowly taking over now, do you think it would have looked different back then?
Absolutely not. Nobody would have touched it. English was the language of aspiration then. Yeah.
Interesting.
And continues to be, actually, no matter what is also being aspired for. English is the language of aspiration in most households, okay? and there's nothing wrong with it. English is the currency for a lot of things, it is the thing to grow within an establishment. It is what your employee will, or a future employee will judge you on when you go for an interview. These are all realities of today. So English continues to be the language of aspiration. Now, of course, probably there is also the market for other languages, which is wonderful.
A lot also depends on the quality of the product and the pricing at which it is spec. For example, if you go regional, you have to go to a 1/5 to a 2/5 kind of a
Price.
price
Okay.
proposition.
Yeah, which is sad, actually.
Then you will sad. Interesting. I mean, we are leapfrogging a little bit, but still, because we are talking about this, when we did the Hindi and the Tamil, because we did Hindi and Tamil, Hindi was, for the first time ever, Gulzar Saab actually did what he calls a transcreation. I mean, he uses that word rather than translation, because he did not do a literal translation. He retold the story, but the entire soundscape, etc., was maintained exactly. The sequence,
Okay.
the story was exactly the same. So, Hindi, and he narrated it himself, a fabulous narrator once again. We did Tamil with Nasser Sar as the as a narrator. Both of these products came out, and we started placing them in markets like Trichy, Madurai, Kanpur, which were not natural markets for the Karadi Tales product. Karadi Tales was definitely urbane in terms of its pricing and in terms of its outlets. What each of these booksellers in these places said that they want to stock the English product too in these places. And the English product consistently outsold the Hindi and the Tamil.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it
So for us, it was a
would.
reality check in terms of what
This was when?
This.
It's probably the early years, early 2000. Yeah.
Okay, early
Yeah.
years. I'm curious to know, what do you think will happen today? If you did that experiment today, do you think the difference will remain?
The aspiration is more than ever. Okay, whichever way you look at it, you have created a society, or you have created a nation which thinks that English is the bridge language. Whenever people talk about Hindi as a bridge language, I'll ask a simple question. If the Gujarat government website is in Gujarati, the other language is English, not Hindi.
Absolutely.
So given that we have, whether we like it or not, we have locked ourselves into that kind of situation. Your universities teach largely in English.
Correct.
They don't cater to the language.
Higher education happens in
Education
English.
is completely English.
Right.
And all you have created is, you have created a huge challenge for somebody who has learned in a Tamil medium or a Hindi medium to move into higher education, because language becomes a huge barrier.
Barrier.
I'm intelligent, but suddenly you're testing my intelligence in a language that I don't know.
Correct.
How do I come across? So
Right.
anyway, we digress.
So that's actually interesting. I'll bring it back to a point that I think is relevant. You said two different things. You said that you wanted to capture the Indic ethos, you wanted to capture Indian stories, and naturally there is an Indian, analogies, metaphors, words.
Yeah.
How did you work that into English? That was one. Second question I was curious to hear is, you went with audio.
Yeah.
We live in a very visual world, right? Our eyes dominate. So
Yeah.
was there a thinking that why did you launch audio rather than a book normally? Is these two questions that strike me, right?
So one is that which I already said, that I saw what a book and a cassette, or
Okay,
a book and an audio does for reading, does for love of books, does for an association or a love with the language, and that was what captured our imagination.
You just went with it.
So we
You
just
didn't
went with
overthink
it.
that.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
nice.
This is always because of the fact that we are schooled in music from a very young age. One of the things that you value a lot is this ability to listen.
Interesting.
And when you put something in a visual form with all the other elements of it, you are basically dumbing it down for the consumer, which is the child in this particular case. when I give just the optimal stimuli, that is, the jackal is right now fleeing from all the dogs in that village. It is dark, it is night time. If there are 5 children listening to it, 5 children are painting very different pictures. So the theater of the mind is very diverse. That's what you want to foster. You don't want to foster that one animator's view of how where the dogs are running, where the jackal is running, what is the nature of the house. So you just have a little bit of an indicator in terms of illustration. But the entire movement, the theater, the chaos, the emotions, all of them are the child's. What is the jackal's eye look like at that particular moment? Because you would be very surprised about how well children imagine when you kind of give them the stimulus for just evoking the theater of the mind. And so this is something that I talk about a lot, that learning is a lot about being able to evoke the theater.
Fun.
Even if it is Newton's law, your theater of the mind will help you do that. Even if it's quantum physics, the theater of the mind will help you actually get a better understanding of what you are.
I'd like to talk about first what is Karadi Tales, and can you take me through the hoops of your history? What were the big milestones? What are the different segments you cater to, etc.? The whole story and how the country's changed. I'm guessing from analog tape to AI that we are. It'd be nice to hear that entire arc of your entrepreneurial journey.
One is we don't have enough time for that. So what we'll probably do is I'll ask Vish to just rush through it or give a few highlights.
Give us the highlights.
Yeah, I can.
The milestones, rather.
Yeah.
Actually, I can just paraphrase what she said, that we'll keep it.
Keep it tight.
Keep it tighter.
Yeah.
But I've left it broad because I don't know which is your interesting milestone. That's all.
And then she can fill in whatever I miss out.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that has happened.
Yeah.
That,
Yeah.
So you want me to, I can cover it both from the creative journey standpoint and the business journey standpoint.
Yeah.
Because there
Yeah, it'll
also,
be nice.
there's a story there
Yes.
as well.
Yeah.
And as always, I would love the anecdotes, like, Mr. Nasir Saab agreeing to do it. It'll be nice to see those. I think that was a turning moment, no?
Yeah.
Business-wise, no, but validation or sort of what it helped actually, even in business-wise.
So just as a bite, I'll just tell you this. It was the second anecdote that I wanted to share with you with my earlier. So the product got done. It was Blue Jackal and The Foolish Lion were our first 2 books, with a cassette on one side was the Blue Jackal, on the other side was the Foolish Lion.
There's A and B in
A and
it.
B. Oh,
A,
side A, side B. Oh God, okay, I remember
God, I
this.
feel ancient.
Even
now.
I do, yeah.
And the product was ready. It was nicely packaged, and we sent the first copy, of course, to Nasir. We were in Chennai at the time, and of course Nasir is in Bombay, and it was a time of landlines. So
To book a call.
the phone rang, and then I picked it up, and he said, "Hello, this is Nasir." And then I said, "Oh my God!" And I knew and my heart was in my mouth. I didn't know how he would respond to it. I didn't know whether he would have liked it, because he is who he is, he's a theater actor. And even while we were recording him, we learned from him, because we were all like newbies to this, right? And then he said, "Shubha, you guys have done an absolutely fantastic job. I'm so proud to be associated with this." And it was like, I'll never ever forget that day, Then I just sat down and I said, "Nasir, I'm at a loss of words as to, how to even respond to this, but thank you hugely." It was like, Nasir is critical of a lot of things, and his standards are like so super duper high, or he holds the bar up so high. And it was like such a nice pat on the back.
And that's the one that sold that 18,000 copies in 8 months.
And subsequent
Ones also did.
everything. There is actually a little bit changed the standard in terms of the volumes that were being sold at that particular point in time. Another anecdote, I don't know whether we have time for it, but was that after we had a few other narrators like Jafri, Girish Karnad come into the picture, we once met Nasir, and Nasir said, "You guys simply don't pay. I go to Denmark, I'm known as Karadi. I go to Pakistan, I'm known as Karadi. They don't know me as an actor, but they know Karadi Tales.
COVID, we also did a small Zoom kind of. We thought even we would do a podcast, and we had Nasir come on the program. And then when we talked to him and we asked him, of all that you have done, what is it that you enjoyed the most and you like to be remembered for? And he said, I don't know what I would be remembered for, but what I'm very proud of having done is two things. One is Mirza Ghalib, and the other one is Karadi Tales. And he said, in so many, many places that I go internationally, out of the country, people have heard of my voice in Karadi Tales. I mean, what greater validation do you want?
Very interesting. Business-wise, couple of anecdotes quickly. When did you feel like, okay, you crossed a milestone that now you're not a, what do I say, a startup, for the lack of a better word, you were maturing into, I'm the big league now, dog.
Well, as a business, no children's publishing house has ever been remotely big league.
Okay.
Independent children's
The
house.
kind of impact that many of us have had is hugely disproportionate to the size of our enterprises.
Interesting.
I can just take this, I can take the example of Amar Chitragatha, where an entire generation will claim to have
Grown up
on it and learned about India via Amar Chitragatha and our history via Amar Chitragatha rather than their textbooks.
Correct.
They did not exceed, 20 crores in revenue at any point in time.
Very interesting thing.
So, because what was happening is that, interesting anecdote here is that families would write to us about how wonderful Karadi Tales is and how we made cassettes, copies for everybody in the village. They never felt that there was anything wrong. They thought they were spreading the good word.
Yeah.
And maybe that was also true. Similarly, since I grew up in the Amar Chitragatha era, we know how many Raddiwala bound copies of Amar Chitragatha you will actually.
And one
get.
Amar Chitragatha would be read by multiple children. It was not like each one got their own copy, right?
Yeah.
So similar with Karadi Tales,
Yeah.
In fact, schools have done it. Innocently, we would walk into a school and they would have made Xerox copies of the book and given it to every child and played the audio in the classroom.
Yeah.
How did you take it? Must have hurt, no? At some level.
No, there are two ways to look at it. If you look at it with the true perspective of the impact that you're making with the child, you will feel really good about it. Somebody found it worthwhile to make copies. It's not easy to make copies. You have to make it in real time, okay? There's no click and cut and paste here.
Actually, interesting.
You have
Interesting
to,
of the
you have
times
to have
that.
one cassette player, another cassette player, and it has to run for 23 minutes one side in order for the copy to happen on both sides. So somebody found it worthwhile. The school teacher found it worthwhile that she found the storytelling so good that she actually decided to make copies of it for her children because she could not afford to buy it and the school would not buy it. So she has taken this initiative to do this in the classroom. So you have to respect the fact that somewhere or the other the work that you did got disseminated because there is a value in dissemination. I look at it from a business perspective. Yes, I feel, oh my God, and where are you? How do you actually sustain?
Did you think of ways to work around this? I don't know what you could have done. I don't know what technology was available to you then. Because this is the classic Steve Jobs thing.
Yeah.
He made sure everyone is hooked. He hated people stealing IP. It's an American thing, but of course, a Western thing rather. But did you ever toy with something like that? Do you think that will cut sales? How do you think that will impact it?
No, that's why we are horrible businessmen. We could not, easily reconcile the two things. We did not feel that we should go after the people who had made copies. We genuinely did not feel so. Because we were beneficiaries of it at one point in time, right? And in Indian thinking, we believe that we as human beings do not create that. Somewhere or the other, there are contributions that allow us to kind of be the channel.
Yeah.
And so you think with that philosophical approach as well.
Yeah.
So and you believe in that philosophical mindset. A guru believes in dissemination. So in whatever form that you are actually disseminating here, you feel good about it on one side. Do you want to kill it? So I will never think like a Steve Jobs. It's just not in your mental makeup to think like a Steve Jobs. So I think investors will not invest in our startup.
Okay, that's
And Vish also says that even after almost being 30 years, we are still a startup only. You can't, in the business sense, we are still a startup. It's not like we've, bangla banaya, char gaadi aa gaya, or whatever. We are gone public.
Unicorn valuations.
Unicorn.
So I must ask this because I cannot ditch. How did you work with, how did people stay then? Did you have lifers? Do you have people who continuously worked with you, or did you have to deal with people coming in and leaving? Because it directly flows into that.
Both ways, in the sense that there has always been a core team that has, believed in the values that we were there. Everybody has to have roti kapda makan at some point. So to that extent, the business was sustainable. But it wasn't something that you could. In any case, nobody would get into children's publishing thinking that I'm going to make tons of money in it. I mean, I don't think anybody ever made
And
money.
when did you realize that? Did you know it all along? Or do you think you realized that?
We never got into it with the intent of making money in any case.
And I think at some point in time, we realized that, that this is a bit of a Hobson's choice. Okay, so you are not, you will get one or the other, you want both. So it continues to be a balancing act.
Got it.
It is still a balancing act. And I think when we create whatever we create it, and we have to derive a substantial amount of satisfaction from the passion being realized.
Yeah, and the impact of the product wherever, the book or the audio, to so many children, across the country. And maybe we should consider ourselves the few fortunate people in this planet who get up every morning wanting to go to work.
Absolutely.
Which is a wonderful thing.
So nicely put. That's actually very nicely put. I'm curious to know quickly, as an arc, how has, you started with audio, since you said audiobook, the medium in which audio is stored, you alluded to it, has changed. How can you trace that journey little from tapes to, I don't know, zeros and ones, for the lack of a better
So there are two tracks, right? One is the creative content.
Correct.
The other is the medium through which the creative content is disseminated.
Right.
When we created these stories, we did it with so much input that it has remained timeless. So from time to time, what happens is that the medium changes. So the cassette morphs into a CD, the CD goes into a USB drive, and this was probably the point when the viability of the audiobook itself came into question, because the USB drive was an expensive proposition. Nobody had CD players or cassette players, in the recent past. And so until the cloud became another option, a real option, basically you did have a period when you did not have a good solution to the change in terms of the media. Now we once again are launching the Karadi Tales audiobooks, because you just go to a QR code in the book, you download the audio from the cloud. So the cost of the medium does not kind of become prohibitive. So once again, now it regains its viability in probably the best possible way, is that you don't have the cost of a cassette, you don't have the cost of a CD, you don't have a cost of a USB. I just have the cost of putting it up on the cloud, and that is much lower than the cost of these material items. So with this relaunch of the audiobooks, of the Karadi Tales audiobooks, we know that the consumption can actually go up quite substantially.
Well, what was interesting for me is that the story seems to be timeless. So there is. So what makes a story timeless?
I think they were the initial stories that we picked. Actually, most of the stories that we picked for the audiobook series were in any case borrowed from existing timeless stories. How old is the Panchatantra? How old is the Jataka? So it was already timeless. It came to us from ever so long ago. We packaged it beautifully in terms of the manner in which the story was told, the music, the song, the soundscape, the illustrations in the book, and at a time that we did it, which I think by the grace of our all our elders, our gurus, and our gods, was such a fabulous thing because as technology progressed and other publishers were trying to think, oh my god, we have to digitize it, we have to give it audio, we already had all of that. In fact, quite early in the publishing journey, we also took, because the audio tracks were so brilliant, we made animated books of it. We converted at least 26 books into animated episodes. And
One what you have on YouTube, those.
we have it on YouTube. We have it. If you travel by Air India, you can go to the kids section, and we've got it there. And these are things that we've sold long ago, and it was possible for us to give this content in so many different formats to so many different people because we've already done it. It was on Amazon Prime, all these 26 episodes.
Actually, 54.
54. What we created then kind of held us in good stead across the various developing platforms or evolving platforms. And it was really the grace of something very wonderful. Yeah.
Can you quickly tell me about storytelling? What have you, if you had to quickly distill 3-4 things, what makes a story really, really timeless? I know you said it is uncertain. I get it, yes. But what do you think makes it timeless that even in the age of reels, that these things are going to be still engaging or hooked or something that someone want to engage with? In your journey so far, 3-4 things that you think is a good story, cutting across ages, gender, nationality, etc.
I think one thing is that after listening to a story, if there is something that the child takes away from it, and I'm not talking about a value or a moral or any such higher, not that that is not valid, but it takes away from it an experience that has touched him or her, that is what will make it timeless, or it will make it a classic. And how does it happen? It happens in the manner in which the child experiences the story. The manner in which the child experiences the story is either by reading it themselves or in the experience of the listening itself. How well is the story told? How well is the storyteller? And that's it. That we've been able to do it with music and sound and give this completely rich experience to the child has created it as timeless. I think these are the pointers.
But there are components, I think.
Yeah.
The writing, for example, how much attention do you pay to the writing? When the script undergoes multiple iterations, you don't look at it as a bachon ka book hai. That's not the way that you approach it. You approach it as a story that somewhere or the other you're dealing with a great amount of respect for the recipient out there. The 3-year-old or the 4-year-old, you are looking at his or her time as valuable and saying that when I'm creating something for this 4-year-old, with what level of intensity am I actually doing my job? So whether it is the writing, whether it is the illustration or the art, whether it is the storytelling, whether it is the music, whether it is the songs separately, why does it take a Gulzar to translate a children's book? So how do you actually look out for the best kind of resources and then say that I'm going to bring this all together because it is worth it? And at some level, when you have that kind of a value to it, I think that the timelessness just happens.
It's interesting.
No, I'll give you an example of a story that we probably, everyone over here or anybody, if you go to a school or a classroom or even a party that all of us know, is the story of the foolish crow. You know the story of the crow. I don't know in Karnataka what the crow steals from the grandmother. What does it steal here?
Maybe the vada.
The vada, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah, I'm guessing the order. Sorry.
The vada.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. In probably in Maharashtra, it will steal chapati. Or in Goa, it might steal fish. Or in France, it steals
A
cheese or
croissant.
something. Or a croissant. Yeah. It is a story everybody knows. But when you take this story, okay, and then you create very solid characters of the fox and the crow. And we all know that the fox wants the piece of roti from the crow. And what does it do? The crow goes and sits on the branch of a tree. And what does the fox say?
It praises you must sing.
It praises, yeah.
Sing
Oh,
so
you're
well.
the best singer. You're so beautiful. The whole forest knows how beautifully you sing. Can you please sing a song? And the crow, vain that she is, and like taken and succumbing to the fox's flattery, opens the mouth and sings a song very badly, and the vada drops and the fox wins and goes away. Now, to take this very common and well-known story, and then we come to the fox sits there and looks at the crow and sings.
Sing the sunflowers.
No. What does the fox sing to the crow? What does it ask? Kawa, you foolish.
That's after the. Sorry,
No,
we may
that
need
is-
to cut this part out.
What does it say? Good morning,
Good
Oka.
morning, O Kawa, the best of all crows. I've heard so much about you, why the whole jungle knows. Your beauty, dear Kawa, puts peacocks to shame. Black feathers, grey neck, Sundari should be your name. Oh, what a pretty face and lovely eyes too. Kawa, my dear, how can I describe you? So this is the way the story.
Story goes. And Kawa is so flattered that she opens her mouth and doesn't sing any song. She sings this song of all the 7 notes in the musical scale. And I want you to sing it nicely
Okay.
for Sriram here.
No, but-
not the way Kawa sings it.
No, Kawa actually sings it nicely.
Kawa sings it nicely.
So
but
we,
Kawa sings it
one
in
of the
Kawa's
things that we
voice.
do is that as much as it is a kind of a parody kind of a song, the beauty of the song is preserved except for Kawa's voice. Every other element of
pitch
the
and the-
song is preserved. So, sing the sunflowers, rearing out the red roses. So the composition, all of those things are very intact. So the song then goes into the refined mode so that the child can actually sing the sunflowers, rearing out the red roses, giggle the gulmohars, ma the marigolds, pop the pretty poppies, da dance the dahlias, nee not the neem flowers, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. So set to a very chaste Kalyani or Yaman. You know, so the song
Raga.
is so this song is a favorite among children.
Yeah.
So Kawa is also sung it in Kawa's version, and then there's a beautiful version of the song that the child can take back. Then children enjoy singing both versions of the song
Yeah.
because there's a certain joy in singing it like Kawa and a joy in singing it, you know. In
So
this
what
way.
happens is you introduce the 7 notes of the musical scale without it being a part class or a music class, you know?
Correct.
Yeah. And it is all, and this is what makes, therefore, The Foolish Crow a classic.
Describe to me what Karadi Tales does as shortly and as wittily as you can.
Wittily, I don't know, but I think Karadi Tales is a very, very good storyteller. Both in print, in audio, in visuals. So you can read a fantastic story, you can look at brilliant illustrations, and you can listen to a story with all the magic of storytelling that there is.
Oh, that's so nicely put. Because I kind of agree. I thought the engaging bit about Karadi Tales was not just the narrative. Of course, they were all. But my children can't stop humming "I'm Just Like You." So when did the rhymes bit sort of kick in? Did it come in as a? I'm curious to know. Tell us a little bit of that.
Yeah, so there's a little anecdote to this. So right in the early years of Karadi Tales, we
In 1999.
in
to
1999,
2000,
yeah, around. I would go with these books and tapes, and I would go to schools to see whether the schools would be interested in buying it for their libraries, or having an experience of it. And I remember this one school, it was in Adyar only, and I was waiting in the corridor, waiting to meet the principal. And it was almost towards the school would have broken for the summer vacation in a very little time, the last week of school. So hot, April, I think, or end of March. And I'm sitting there waiting for the principal, and I hear children singing, "Rain, rain, go away. Come again another day. Little Johnny wants to play." And I'm thinking, we are dying for rain, waiting for rain. The earth is parched, okay? And what are we doing teaching children a song like "Rain, Rain, Go Away"? And right in the peak of summer, and I was thinking maybe that's why there is drought that is happening in India, because children are singing "Rain, Rain, Go Away" and the gods are listening to them. And that's when I said, let's relook these nursery rhymes, things that we grew up with, the rhymes that are so colonial, make no sense to us at all. Jack and Jill went up the hill. I don't know a Jack or a Jill. In my entire life, I have not met a Jack or a Jill. And we call a bucket, we don't call it a pail. And the children are just rat lagawing, Jack and Jill went up a hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown. And I'm thinking, has the teacher ever said the crown is a head, or is it what is it? But these rhymes were created for the monarchy, to as maybe little ditties to make fun of the monarch, that the king fell down and broke his crown, and therefore he lost his place in the kingdom. And we in India are singing it with absolutely really no context to our childhoods or our lives. So that's when I decided that I think we need to create English rhymes for Indian children. Wonderful rhymes already existed in languages, Marathi, they were singing "Yere Yere Pausa," correct? But we are in English, we are singing "Rain, Rain, Go Away." Made no sense. Tamil, they were wonderful rhymes. Hindi, they were marvelous rhymes. Every language had beautiful rhymes which were contextual to our children. But in English, we were singing the rhymes that the British had left us. So that's when we created the first set of 10 rhymes, English nursery rhymes for children in India, which was "Just Like You." My name is Madhavi. I'm from Alleppey. I speak Malayalam, but I'm just like you, across all the states. And then we wrote about mangoes, and then we wrote about kites and Indian trees and rivers and bhelpuri and going to the beach and so many things that is a part of our childhood. And we got Usha Uttup, of course, to sing these rhymes. And that was the first volume, and then came the second volume, and now we've got 3 volumes of 10 rhymes each in each of these audiobooks. And I don't know, I think it's our bestseller, because we've lost count of how many we've sold, and how many we've sold is one thing, but how many children have listened to it is another thing altogether. In fact, at one time, I think my brother-in-law Narayan, who does the music for all of it, was invited to a school as a chief guest, and as a musician. Okay, he went there as a chief guest, and the children were performing "Just Like You." My name is Madhavi, and the principal told Narayan, do you know this is from Karadi Tales? Without knowing that he was one of the founders of Karadi Tales and he'd given music to the entire set of rhymes.
So in a way, you built
Yeah.
a brand recall like few others, like they say in the technical language.
So that's the beauty of it. And if you ask me, of all that I've written and done for Karadi Tales, what is the thing that I'm most proud about? It would be the rhymes. It would be the Karadi rhymes. 30 songs, all for Indian children in English.
Oh, very cool. How is AI sort of coming into all of this? What do you think AI is going to do to storytelling itself? Let's talk about storytelling. What are the pluses? What are the hits? What are the misses?
I think that we are still in the early stages of AI, and AI, both generative artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence, both are, going to come, and they are necessarily going to make it such that a lot of the skills that you have, they will be able to mimic extraordinarily well.
Okay.
So we must not kind of, I will talk about it from a education perspective. Shobha will probably answer the question from a storytelling perspective. Yeah. But from a learning perspective, it now makes a lot of what you're doing in the classrooms substantially redundant.
Correct.
You necessarily need to create creative thinkers. You need to create critical thinkers. The information itself is going to be available to you. Yeah, very sophisticated level. If today you go to ChatGPT and ask complex questions on anything, it does it with such a level of nuance.
Correct.
It does it with such a level of precision that my teacher, unfortunately, is one person. This is capturing the intelligence of thousands of people,
right,
and filtering it and doing all of this in split seconds. Now, how do you actually now counter this in the conventional way, which you cannot? So you become much smarter. You see what is the human being capable of that is at that higher level, rather than what we are doing in the classroom to a large extent. And then so then Karadi Path also becomes that much more powerful as a tool. Correct. Saying that I need to acquire these skills much earlier. I need to process these skills into other higher order skills in a much more efficient manner.
Very interesting. Yeah. Storytelling part, I'm curious to hear your view. Sucks so loud, isn't it?
No, I mean, I'm definitely not against AI. It is where things are headed. Like I was telling somebody just yesterday in a school that I was born when in a household where even television had not come, and from then to now, and it's in the period of one generation, look what has happened. We used to wait for the results to be out for the postman to come to give us our report card. I mean, where are the postmen? I don't think our children know postmen. So, of course, things have to move, things have to evolve, things have to progress. We keep, as much as we can, in touch with evolving technology. Certain things, though, it's not about what technology does in terms of how fast it does it, how precisely it does it, or even how well it does it. When we do it as humans, the goal is not to do it fast or do it perfectly or do it efficiently. Our goal, it always has been, I feel, from the time humanity came into existence, is that the product or whatever your goal is a byproduct of the journey that you take to get there, and what it does to us, how it transforms us in the process, and what it makes of us. That value is not something AI would have taken that away from us. Okay. And so in the light of that, what do we do to keep it intact? What else do we do to keep it intact? How do we transform ourselves? That's a whole different conversation in itself. what are the means that will be available to us to transform that? Then our sight will definitely have to shift from the goal being the product, but on the journey itself. So whether it's inward or even towards that goal, but that not being the objective, that what it makes of us is, I think we have to find ways to retain it, and we have to find ways to other means to, get to that. Otherwise, we will just, I think, I don't know what will happen to us.
So interesting.
Really,
It's a pretty dark thought, but
yeah.
I think you sort of captured it quite well.
There is an element here which is about the journey, that it will have a huge impact in terms of how you curate your learning experience itself. Now, suppose one thing is to increase your efficiency by using AI.
Correct.
But if you now start compromising on your learning journey, because your brain could very well atrophy if it doesn't have to think.
Correct.
Whether it's Alzheimer's or
Correct.
dementia, you're going to find many of these elements coming into play. So there has to be rigor in terms of the journey part of it. There has to be a certain sense of naturalness in terms of the journey part of it. Once you have accomplished that, then the utilization of AI becomes something that is positive. There is another element of humaneness, which I think is very critical, empathy and, the way we think. And in fact, recently at a conference, I was asking the principal, are you willing to actually make the goodness of a human being a criteria in judging that student? Are you willing to give marks in how empathetic or helpful or good the child is? And it's not enough to give marks. Your admission criteria should also use these as values with which you will actually admit the child into, let's say, another level. Because increasingly we know that, or there's a possibility that work will no longer be for livelihood, but it will be for doing, higher things from humanity. Because a lot of, somewhere or the other in the last couple of, or 2 or 3 centuries, work was not always about livelihood. Work was about a lot of other things. Work was about the journey, so much. But today it has just become that, your aspiration and your everything is built, focused around the livelihood angle. That may go away, and we may actually come back to very nice times when you can actually enjoy the trees, enjoy the soil under your feet.
Get into farming, grow our food.
That's. I like how you've given one almost macabre and one really cheerful ending to how this goes. Is there anything else that you guys want to add before we call it a day? Anything else that we missed? Anything else any last remarks?
Actually, I don't know. I think our journey of 30 years are filled with so many incidents and so much of growth for ourselves as individuals, as human beings, and the creative process itself, and so many anecdotes along the way, so many highs, quite a few lows, and I don't
Talk
think
about the lows at all. Now that you're opening up a whole Pandora's box.
Yeah, so I don't think that a podcast can capture all of that. So sometimes even we have difficulty recalling, or sometimes we look back and say, my God, look at the massive amount of work that we've done. And I think at the end, I would always say that if tomorrow I was to meet my maker and he said, was it a fruitful life you've led? And I think I would be happy to say a yes to that,
What a nice way to end this. And I thank you so much for taking the time out and telling us your story.
Thank you, Sriram.
It's always fascinating to listen to analog days. To the days of AI. The whole entire technology arc was at some level captured, not to mention the perspective. It's what I found extremely interesting was the line that you said, right? You saw people copying, counterfeiting your product, and you're happy. I don't know how many businessmen or entrepreneurs will be
It continues to happen. People just, especially with songs like Just Like You, they're all using it all over the place. They probably themselves don't know who's created it, who's written it, who's sung it. Maybe they do, but who's done the music? And it's two sides of a coin, I suppose. Are you happy about it? We're very happy about the impact. Of course we are, like he said. But business-wise, it makes no sense.
Makes no sense at all.
Makes no sense at all, yeah.
Super. Thank you so much. Thank you. I had a great time.
Thank you.